So, it was somewhere around the first or second sip of Slivovitz. Has anyone had Slivovitz before? On an empty stomach, mind you. And seeing a shira for the very first time before we entered under the chuppah, that I realized something crucial was missing. I'm sure you have that feeling sometimes. Maybe I forgot something. This was our wedding day, and we, as untraditional Jews who love Jewish tradition, were putting a new spin on several of the traditional rituals. Instead of the all-male bonding ritual we call the tish. That is where the groom's buddies gather together and try to get the groom drunk. We had a co-ed tish, where a shira sequestered herself on one side of the facility where we were, and I was on a different side with my friends, and there wasn't a lot of drinking. That was probably as much as I got, those 2 sips of Slivovitz. Then we walked backwards towards each other, guided by our friends and our family, to meet in what would loosely be called the bedekin. That's the veiling, but there was no veil involved at all. We turned to face one another. It was then, knowing me as well as she did, that Ashira could sense that something was wrong. By it, what I had forgotten was my kittel, the long white garment traditionally worn not only on your wedding day, but here on Yom Kippur. And this was no ordinary kittel, picked out for me by Ashira's maternal grandfather, Papa Jack. He was the most remarkable human being, only about this high, but the strongest person you'll ever meet. A Holocaust survivor, the patriarch of our family. This was not merely an accoutrement of our ceremony, but an essential element. Thus began the mad dash of my friend and colleague, Rabbi Sean Zevitt, who just by us asking him, without any further thought, he jumped in his car and zipped up twisty, windy Lincoln Drive to recover this crucial garment from where I left it on a hanger by the door of our apartment. It had snowed that morning, and in my haste to get out to the Philadelphia Botanical Garden, where our wedding took place, and worried about driving through that white stuff, believe it or not, I had never really driven in the snow before. I had inadvertently left the kittel behind. So while I berated myself profusely for my mistake, our guest gleefully danced the hurrah just outside of the room where we were signing the ketubah. Without a doubt, this was a rabbinic wedding. Half of the guests were either married to rabbis or rabbis themselves. And after a delay of what felt to me like hours and was probably less than a half hour, Sean really could zip it. I proceeded down the aisle in my white kittel, later to be covered in the talis from Ashira's father of blessed memory. I think of this moment each and every single Kol Nidre when I stand before you in that very same kittel that Papa Jack gave me that day. In this traditional Jewish uniform, I am covered nearly head to toe with my ancestors' blessings and Papa Jack's love. Tonight, all Jews, as I said at the beginning, whether leader or participant, don their talit, their prayer shawl, a tradition elevating the Kol Nidre service from all the other nights of the year. This sacred ritual garment offers the warmth and comfort of 1,000 generations that came before us. Adorned in our Lidor Vador, we are not alone, but have a direct connection between past, present, and future. Each strand of our talis conveying a message of Jewish peoplehood and solidarity. This is not just a spiritual connection, but a physical one. Shira told me she remembered growing up wearing her father's tallis and twisting it around her fingers. Probably you're familiar with that. When you wear a tallis, it's such joy. That's part of what makes it so special. There's a tradition actually before the Shema of taking the strands of all four sides together. And about this, our friend Rabbi Danielle Parmenter had the following teaching. I learned this when we were together at Camp Havaya this summer. First, she said, take one individual strand, one seats. This is the experience of the individual, alone, separate. Then take these collected, bring all these four together. This is the experience, the one section of the next one is this. That's a community. That's like Shir Shalom. We're disconnected from others, but we have it. Then we bring all of these together. That's the Jewish world, Klal Yisrael. Then we look and we notice it's not just that, we have a whole garment. That is all the generation of Jews that have come before us. All of these, from the individual seat to the one seat, to the seat, to the talit, all of this shows our peoplehood and our connection. What a beautiful message for our increasingly fractured time. Sadly for me, and maybe for many of you, the fabric of our Jewish identity feels like it's beginning to fray a little bit. It doesn't feel as strong as it has in years past. I feel a tear and fray whenever I'm notified of another anti-Semitic incident in our country and in our own community. Just last week, there was a firebombing of a synagogue in Florida, along with several reports of swastikas in our area schools. I feel a tear just a little when I'm notified by one of my children that they or their classmates are being harassed or intimidated, physically threatened just because they are Jewish. Even going so far as to tell one of my children that all Jews should die. It breaks your heart. It really happened. I feel a tear a little whenever one of our members has their window broken, a swastika painted on their property, the chanting of From the River to the Sea at a public event. I feel a tear a little whenever a campus protest erupts, like the incident last week at Syracuse Fraternity on Rosh Hashanah. I feel a tear a little bit whenever I need to tell a reporter filming in our sanctuary about our safety and security not to film our flag over here, for fear of the potential negative attention it would bring to our community. I feel a tear a little when I'm told that Jera's BBYO, B'nai B'rith trip to Eastern Europe had increased security, and it was suggested to her and to all of the group members to hide any markings of their Jewish identity while walking in the city. I feel a tear a little bit whenever a new security detail is added to our own synagogue. We have 4 now for Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah. Or one of our events is forced to change locations altogether out of a safety concern. I feel a tear a little bit whenever I look at my rabbinic listserv, rabbis, and I see a colleague spewing hate and insults at another colleague because of their views on Israel. And I feel a tear a little bit whenever Israel and Gaza is actually not spoken about for fear of the consequences of our own disagreements. No, this is definitely not an easy year to be Jewish. In times of these, how do we hold our seat? Grab your seat together. How do we hold them? How do we maintain our collective identity, even as our community and our world sequester off into increasingly fragmented silos? Labrit. How do we maintain our pride? This is where I wish I could turn to Papa Jack for advice. It was no accident that his gift to me was a kittel. Fabric was a central piece of who he was. As an expert tailor, he always had his needle and thread ready to repair loose buttons or torn sleeves. It was just there. As soon as he saw a shearer had something tearing, he was right there on it. He always wore his Jewish pride on his sleeve every day, in spite of all that he had gone through. Yes, he was a survivor, losing almost all of his family at the hands of the Nazis, but more than that, he was an inspirer. Every day for him, after all that he had endured, had to be, as he said, a good one. Born in Pruszka, Poland in January 1910, a picturesque small Polish town on the German border, population 900. Papa Jack lost his mother after she had given birth to his youngest sibling when he was just 9. Shortly after his bar mitzvah, he was sent off with an older brother to learn a trade, learn to be a tailor. In no time, he and his brother had established a thriving tailor business, selling men's suits off the rack and made-to-measure suits for wealthier clients. In 1937, as the world was beginning to heat up, Papa Jack sold his share of the business to visit his sister Helen in Paris, who had just had a couple of children. Arriving there in style, this part of the story I love, he came in trendy 3/4 length golf pants outfit with matching socks that he had made himself. He immediately found a job at a makeshift clothing factory nearby in Paris, producing twice as much as his co-workers, but only being half because he didn't have only being paid half, because he didn't have a work visa. When the Nazis finally came, he jumped out windows, literally, ran away from jail cells. When they came, this is a true story, they were looking to round up, they were looking for Jack Najman. And he said, "Do you know Jack Najman? Where is he?" And he says, "I know him. He's on the 4th floor." Watched them go, and he left. He could really think on his feet. He also fell in love, meeting his beloved Rosie, and getting married in a makeshift ceremony at a courthouse, and then stopping a random stranger at the street who looked Jewish to perform the Sheva Brachot, the 7 wedding blessings. Later, when separated from Rosie, Papa Jack walked 100 miles barefoot to get back to her. The only thought that kept him going was he wanted to get back to his beloved wife. After many harrowing adventures that would nearly cost him his life several times, he and Grandma Rosie eventually escaped to Portugal on one of the last ships to America. It was called the SS Novamar, a cargo ship meant to carry only 15 passengers. And listen to this, it had 1,200 people aboard. Nicknamed the ship, it was a harrowing trip in which a number of people perished. Arriving in New York City under the shadow of the Statue of Liberty, they did not look like refugees who had just lost everything on a crazy ship. Using his needle and thread, he stitched together outfits for the both of them that made them the talk of the town. In their new home in the Bronx, Papa Jack worked double shifts, often more than 16 hours a day, 6 days a week, not Shabbos, as a tailor and a foreman in the needle trades, later opening his own factory, manufacturing children's coats. His skill as a tailor helped him both escape the Nazis and build a life for his family in America. And if you ever asked him how his life was, he'd say, beautiful. His entire family, community, world wiped out by the Nazis, and still life was beautiful. As he said, it had to be good. It had to be good because what was the alternative? The Yiddish folk song, Hab Icken Mir a Mantel, forgive me, Cantor. I had a little overcoat. And I have the book form over here. Tells the story about a garment It's wonderful. There's a number of children's books that have been made about it. About a garment that was constantly warmed down, having to be transformed to a vest and then a tie and then a button until there is nothing left. And at the end of it, it says the only thing that there was the song. I had a little mantle that I made long ago and had so many patches there was no place to sew. Then I thought and I prayed, and from that coat a little jacket I made, so on and so forth. And now at the end, when he loses the button, I had nothing that I made long ago. It hasn't any patches. There is nothing to sew. From that nothing, this little song I made. It's a precious story, kind of heartbreaking actually, because it really spoke to this new world. The story, the song, it teaches you can always find a way to make something out of nothing. Think about all the immigrants, all the Holocaust survivors, all of our family members who came and left everything behind. That is the story that they wanted to share. This is what it was like to come to America. Papa Jack taught me that our sacred vestments are stronger and more resilient than we ever could have imagined. They have withstood war and genocide, expulsion and revulsion, derision and destruction. When they get dirty, they can be cleaned. When they are no longer usable, they can be restored. And when they tear, they can be repaired. And when we lose them altogether, we can remake them. It is easy for a Jew to feel hopeless in times like these. Our collective kittel is marked with our pain and our suffering. Just remember that Papa Jack, like so many survivors, so many of our ancestors that came here, who lost their entire families at the hands of the Nazis or pogroms or whatever way it was, they came here hoping to start again. They never lost hope. Seeing all of your wonderful chamsas, how many of you are wearing chamsa or Magen David? Raise your hand. That helps sew together my Jewish neshama. Seeing the pride you have in your faith and your community helps sew together my Jewish neshama. Seeing how strong you have been despite our struggles helps sew together my Jewish neshama. Seeing how you show up again and again, anytime you are asked, even when you are not, helps sew together my Jewish neshama. Seeing your kindness, your compassion, not just to one another, but to the larger Western New York and larger world, helps sew together my Jewish neshama. Seeing your voice raised, both to fight injustice and to right wrongs, helps sew together my Jewish neshama. Seeing all of us gathered again on Yom Kippur. It's a little thing, but it's a lot. It sews together mine and all of our Jewish neshama. When I realized at my wedding I had forgotten my kittel, my first instinct was just to go on without it. Why did it matter? I felt so guilty that I was delaying the wedding and setting my friend Sean off on a wild goose chase. I thought, maybe it would be easier not to have the kittel at all. We'll just proceed ahead. We can do the wedding without it. But my wise spouse, Ashira over there, she said that our wedding guests could wait, taking time to retrieve it, not only because it meant something to Papa Jack, but that it was important to the two of us, to me. This year, on December 4th, Ashira and I mark our 20th wedding anniversary. And I have to acknowledge just how right she was. This is good advice to all spouses. This thin piece of fabric, ornate fabric, has served me well all these 2 decades, and hopefully will continue to serve me well in the decades to come. I feel the presence here, as I always do, of Papa Jack and Grandma Rosie, their love for me every time that I wear it. Tonight we are adorned in our collective L'Ador Vador generational garments. We wear them with pride, knowing how much has gone into their creation, knowing that no matter what struggles we face in the future, we simply need a needle and a thread to start again. An easy and meaningful fast, a happy and a blessed year, a hopeful year. May you all be written and sealed in the book of a life well lived. We say, Amen.